Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be looking at a little lineup here. So as you know, this is my current card, which is an EVGA 1080 Ti KINGPIN edition, and it's been pretty decent card. It's still a little bit warm after I pulled it out of the case, but I do have my hands on something else. Now the reason for this video is first and foremost to kind of take a look at two different cards, two different generations to be fair, and see how they stack up, considering, let's say your 1080 Ti dies, you're looking for something similar, but since there's a chip shortage and, the prices are pretty crazy and, multiple things can happen, and you kind of want to go for the next best thing, similar or better, to be honest, then we're just gonna take that as a thing. So before we jump in, let's talk about the 1080 Ti. So this card does have 11 gigabytes of video memory, which is a pretty big achievement. It also has an HDMI port, 3 display ports, and a DVI port. So for a card of its age and performance, this is a pretty good package, to be fair. You can't really complain about it. Every game, even in 2022, I wouldn't say this is a 4K card, even though I sometimes do play some games in 4K with the low or medium settings. It's more like a 2K card. But if you are really strapped and you have full HD monitor, you can actually max out most of the game's ultra settings, 60 plus frames, which again is basically what Nvidia did. They created this card without thinking about the future, because any other card that comes after 1080 Ti is almost a little bit weaker. Which brings us to the next contender, don't know which one is grammatically correct, which is this one, which is MSI's 2070 Super. Now I know you guys gonna go, oh, but it's a 2070, you should be lining up 2080 Ti. First of all, we did that. Performance is amazing. However, it might be a bit difficult to get your hands on 2080 now, or even above 3070 or, God forbid, 3090 Ti. The prices are still going up for reasons unknown, and the chips are not exactly making themselves. So when it comes to this particular card, what we have here is 3 display ports and 1 HDMI port, which does support 4K 60 frames as per HDMI 2.0 standard. Now, side-by-side comparison. God, how do people actually even do these reviews one-handed? As you can see, size-wise, the 2070 is longer. Also, it's pretty clearly a 2-slot card, or at least 2.5-slot card, versus 1080 Ti, which is, well, still 1.5-slot card. So 1080 Ti, 1.5, 2-slot. I think. Not sure. I'll see it when I put it in my case, because to be honest, I kind of took out all the things, so I don't even know how many slots I'm taking with the GPU. I'm gonna go with 2. Let's just keep the middle ground. If you want to take a look at the actual dimensions and specs, I'll link this card down in the description, and you can read all of this, because this is not about the core clocks, boost clocks, and stuff like this. The only things that matter is actually the performance and what this card delivers. First and foremost, this card actually has 8 gigabytes of onboard video memory. So in comparison to 11, you are trading up, well, actual video memory. Second of all, even though it's a 2000 series card, it has less CUDA cores than 1080 Ti, which if you are doing something with rendering or video processing, you kind of not really want to take away the CUDA cores, because that's exactly what is processing your videos. On the bright side, this card does support RTX and DLSS, and if you're picking up a card, you kind of want to have this DLSS feature. We saw that even with the 3060, CyberPunk in Full HD with DLSS enabled was able to outperform a 1080 by quite a margin. Now, obviously, we will have some games lined up. So I have lined up about 3 to 4 games. I'm not sure about number 4, because it's kind of, apples to apples comparison. But nevertheless, so the lineup we're going to be looking at is Anthem. Then we're going to go for Metro Exodus. We're going to go for CyberPunk. And probably Modern Warfare Campaign rather than Warzone. Technically, it should still kind of support DLSS function, apart from Metro Exodus, where the DLSS is only in Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, which you cannot even run if you don't have an RTX card. The game just crashes and says, hey, you don't have the hardware for it. But it does support RTX So we're gonna give it a go for that. Now, first and foremost, we're gonna test both of these cards in 1080p. Reason being, none of these cards are full-blown 4K cards. They are 4040p card at most, and even then some settings might need to be changed. Of course, you can overclock or undervolt the cards, it's entirely up to you, but let's say you just want to get the basic performance and take a look. So let's take a look at the actual MSI. So we have 3 fans. I think this one is spinning other direction than both do, so it's basically for better airflow. We do have pretty nice looking backplate. As you can see, it's amazing. It looks pretty cool, and honestly, this is what you're gonna be seeing. Also, it does support the Mystic RGB stuff on the side. It does support its own control center to enable this RGB stuff. And probably we are not gonna really look at it because, you know, RGB is not exactly my thing. If you guys are into it, power to you. And I cannot just not show you the backplate of a 1080. Look at this, guys. Come on, just it looks nice. 2070 looks nice, but goddamn, this just beefy with something going on here. I will check it later on. Trust me, the car is still working because I just pulled it out and it's still a little bit hot. Maybe it just needs a little bit of dust off. So yeah, I think enough chit chat. I'm getting sidetracked again, even putting the card other way around, but hey, let's jump into some games and see how these things actually work, or are making things work or not work in comparison to, you know, upgrade or downgrade. See you there. So the first title is gonna be Anthem. I know this is an abandonware and people don't usually play it, but it's one of the, I would say, rather taxing games that do support DLSS. When picking up an RTX card, your first focus should be DLSS functionality rather than ray tracing. So just to kick it off, we're gonna be playing this on a Full HD, first off, ultra settings with 1080 Ti. So probably you are thinking, so why such a weird choice? First off, this game, when it launched, it was already pretty taxing due to lack of optimization. On a second hand, it does look good, as you can actually see all these things. And the third is, as you can see, the performance is kind of interesting. So you can see the GPU usage in upper left corner is about 60-ish%. So the GPU is not even being utilized fully. Now in Full HD, there's not really too much things to do. But at the same time, you cannot really max this game out in 4K with decent frame rate. So we just have to make do. So we're gonna just go for a very quick flight with the Javelin. See where we end up and get our frame numbers on. That should help us a little bit. So you're gonna go for free play. Go from the fort. And just launch out. So in general, I would say this game is pretty nice looking. Like graphically, it is very nice. But unfortunately, 2070 Super is not exactly your more performance card when it comes in comparison to 1080 Ti. As you already know, 1080 Ti is kind of the king of GPUs for a very good reason. It does have more CUDA cores, it does clock higher, it does have way better overclock potential, and well, Nvidia kind of, you know, dug their own grave by releasing a 1080 Ti. And people still use it. So for Full HD gaming, this should be absolutely fine.
Reports for unusual activity.
Keep me updated.
So as you can see here, all settings cranked to about 80-ish, and it's only because we are, well, very high up. So let's change that real quick. Let's go somewhere with all the vegetation and things. Unexpected landing occurred, but that's fine. So we are kind of 70-ish frames. GPU is still doing pretty much nothing, 90-85%. So the weirdest thing about this game is it actually kind of works fine, and then it starts stuttering, and basically this is where DLSS might actually come into play. For the simple reason, DLSS will downscale this image and then upscale it up using the deep learning AI or whatnot they claim it to be using. and it should have better frames, I think. Now, why I say better frames is because 2070 Super, in comparison to 1080 Ti, is a weaker card, so it's not exactly a very big surprise. So down here, Full HD, everything maxed out. Not too bad, I would say. Yeah. 65-ish. He's literally using my shield, right? So with all this, actually, the frame rate is pretty decent. I wonder if we can see something better or worse. Of course, for that we will need to enable DLSS, but hey. I think we can manage that. Now, obviously, in Full HD, the gameplay is pretty smooth, so we can actually chalk it up for, I would say, averaging out on about 65 to 70 frames. So let's see how 2070 does in exactly the same settings. Let's take a peek. Here we are with 2070 Super, and obviously the first thing we're going to do is enable the DLSS. Well, to be fair, it's already enabled. So currently we're running again in 1080p, DLSS enabled, and everything else is still on ultra settings. So you can actually have a pretty good sense on how things actually are shaping up. So currently there was a very interesting frame drop straight off the gate, which is a bit unexpected, but hey, I do believe it might be just the game loading up. So what do we see here? Nothing really. I must say the image does look a little bit sharper, which I do believe is just DLSS working its magic. Let's head outside and go for a spin. So when it comes to DLSS cards, now this is one of the things. Oh, stutters. Jesus, we never had this with a 1080. And I must say that performance-wise, this card is a little bit weaker than 1080 Ti, but mostly for everything that comes after the 10 series, it's about driver optimization rather than actual hardware. 1080 Ti basically powers through with brute force, with the lack of certain features. At the same time, I must say, I cannot really say that this card would not be a good upgrade if you lose your 1080 Ti for whatever reason. But if you had to upgrade and you had other options available, let's say 2080 Ti or 3070, I would probably go for a higher tier card. If you can get this card on a budget for a very good price and someone just sells you one on a corner of the street, probably it's worth the take. Now, we're gonna see it in upcoming titles, specifically in Metro Exodus and Modern Warfare, how this card actually, you know, crunches the numbers, but generally, at least looking from the actual manufacturer website, this card does have a slightly lower clock speed, which doesn't exactly mean it's a worse card in general. The only thing that is kind of weird is that every single benchmark site that I visited while learning about this card was saying that, you know, this card is
You look ready. I'll
should
begin
be
a search
avoided.
against the incoming com traffic for unusual activity.
Keep me updated.
So Full HD and with all the DLSS, we're kind of getting the same frames, slightly lower than the 1080 Ti. The GPU usage is 60%. We're using 4.9 gigabytes of video memory, so we're well within the limit of 8. And that's about it. The frame time is a bit high 17s, which I would kind of want to see something lower, but hey, we can't have it all, I guess. I don't know. So far the performance is 60-ish. Not something I would expect from a DLSS card, but oh well. On a bright side, at least it
Don't
is
back
cool.
down.
It's running cool, like 62 degrees, so pretty much the same as a 1080 Ti. Now obviously the reason I'm looking at the temperature is it's a 3-fan card, so it should be fairly cool nevertheless. But the main thing is still the performance. We see this weird blue stuff which happens in Anthem on every RTX card for reasons unknown. Maybe this is how the game actually should be looking like, but we're getting also frame rates below 60 at times. Which honestly I kinda wanna chow down on the game's optimization or lack of, rather than anything else. Playing the same game with 2080 Ti was a breeze. So I cannot really say that, you know, it's anything above or beyond that. In all honesty, if I didn't know what's inside my case currently, I would say this is a very good 1080p card. Which is kinda a little bit of an insult to the 2000 series. I would expect this kind of performance from a 2060. But since this is a slightly overclocked version of a 2070, then, you know, I'm a little bit at loss. At the same time, things are as they are, and I could honestly swear on something that this game looks different. I think it's the DLSS. Well, the frames, I mean, you can clearly see it, and I don't know, we didn't have any stutters or anything like that with 1080 Ti, so I'm just gonna chalk this game up, and I will never test with it again. Let's go up for something a bit more recent and decent at the same time, but yeah, for this title I'm not impressed. Anyway, let's move on. Now the second title is gonna be Metro Exodus. Now, one thing I do have to mention, Metro Exodus does not really have a DLSS settings, but it does have RTX, so, you know, all things considered, this game does look pretty damn good. So obviously we're going to be going at Full HD again, quality extreme, no vertical sync. For your consideration, motion blur is low, DirectX 12, because again, it's a 20 series we're going to be testing, so DirectX 12 is also supported on 1080 Ti. RTX feature is off, the same is for ray tracing obviously, because, well, 1080 Ti does not support that. Hairworks I'm going to leave for off because, to be fair, I'm not exactly sure where to put it. It should be under advanced physics, like as an option for on, but there's not really too much hair in the game. You know, of course, some open heads here and there, but not like, you know, constantly you see your wig flinging about. So tessellation is going to be on, texture filtering on 4 times, and that's pretty much all there is. So we're just gonna hit continue and end up in Volga.
I delivered the maps to the base. Decoding them will take time, so it's too early to choose our next destination yet. Besides, we have more pressing issues right now. Most of the crew members are down due to heat and dehydration, and the Aurora needs a lot of fuel and water to move. The local Kingpin The Baron has it all, but he's none too eager to share. Considering our desperate situation...
So obviously this level will not really have all the flashy surfaces, which would technically kind of mean for RTX, but in terms of RTX it's also about the ray tracing, which is the sunlight and the, well, light source, because, you know, it basically is a light source. I can't really call that a sun, even though it is in a game world. So what do we have with 1080 Ti? We have 78 frames, everything's looking peachy and nice. And yeah, I can't really, you know, say anything bad about this. Like, the performance is great. Metro Exodus came out swinging as a very hard title to run on ultra settings, but as you can see, even in Full HD, the 1080 Ti holds its own. We're using 5.2 gigs of video memory, and apart from that, everything else is actually pretty decent. Even all these little weird explosions of gas and whatnot is not really upsetting the frame rate too much. And even with some movement around, we're still getting pretty solid above 60 frame rate. Now, I'm not expecting crazy improvements when it comes to the actual 2070, but with 2070 we're gonna enable RTX just to see if we're taking any performance hits. So, in all honesty, considering this game will become a bit more taxing if we're gonna start shooting things up, I think averaging it out for about 70 frames as initial is a pretty good average score. Obviously, we cannot just always say, hey, you know, this is the constant frame rate you're going to be getting, but I think it's close enough. And that fire looks very not fiery. I'm kind of hoping for RTX to kind of fix this a little bit. Unless it's made that way, then it's a completely different issue. So you can now look at all the god rays here in this cave. Walk around, see, so just a note to myself, around here we're getting about 80 frames. Even though it's might jump a little higher, you know, because this is a fight place. You basically shoot your way through here. So just because we're getting 80 now, it does not mean that that's going to be constant 80 at all times. So yeah. I think it will be a very interesting comparison when it comes to 2070 Super and end of the day. Obviously, you could technically play this game in, there you go, sub 60. You could play this game in 2K. Not exactly on ultra settings, I believe, but at the same time, it really depends what kind of monitor you're rocking. So, for certain people like me, it's not really gonna make too much of a difference if you're up just for the storyline. If you want to have eye candy, and I don't know, you're still stuck with like 980 Ti or even 1070, 1080, then maybe, excuse me, I think I got bitten by frame drop. Then probably you're gonna be looking at something affordable. So I would say affordable option would be roughly 2070 Super, I guess. Still better than 2060 in all honesty, you know, let's be honest here. Anyway, let's take a look how the 20 series deal with this. So here we are with 2070. Let's double check what we actually have. So still full HD quality on extreme. We are running DirectX 12, and NVIDIA RTX is on, ray tracing is on high, and DLSS is enabled. Hairworks is going to be off just for consistency. First and foremost, DLSS is what I'm actually after here. Everything else is unchanged, so let's just jump in and see how we go. So Metro Exodus in general is a very beautiful game when it comes to it.
Decoding them will take time.
And apparently Artyom just needs to exposition himself again. Let's see how fast this card loads the level.
Issues right now. Most of the crew members are down due to heat and dehydration. And the Aurora needs a lot of fuel and water to move.
You win in life when Metro Exodus loads before the narration
but he's none too eager
actually
to share.
Finishes, which happened right now. So let's go and take a look. So we are exactly where we ended up. And surprisingly enough, the GPU usage is actually up in 97, which is good. Everything on Ultra DLSS, sorry. And we are way above 60, which which is exactly what we would want to see. Let's head back and take a look at all the sun and, well, the light source. See how it all looks and feels. So we are kind of getting into the 60s now, but hey. This was expected. I wouldn't say that I did not expect this to happen at any point. At the same time, there are some little tiny things I can notice in-game, like specifically the light from this thingy, headlight, that's what it's called. And I think that was the thing that gave me frame drop last time. I wonder if we can find it. Surprisingly, I cannot. So, let's take a look. So, everything else looks pretty okay. The frames are fantastic. The fire does look a bit the same. I can see the little tiny smoke cloud and some additional things like the tree branches on our mask, which is very interesting. I don't think we actually had this on 1080. Also, I'm kind of waiting for all this. Well, it does look kind of the same, to be fair. But it goes off with a bigger bling, I would say. Yeah, I think that fire effect is a bit different. It looks quite artificial, but I wouldn't say it's bad, you know? Also, 76 frames, everything absolutely cranked out. That is not bad score at all, to be fair. And again, it kind of proves the point of the DLSS saving the day. Also, the game does have this additional sharpness, and that's probably because DLSS is resizing the image, then upscaling it up using the AI, and that kind of gives a completely different look and feel of the game. And I know this game inside out in terms of how it looks and feels, and one of the main reasons people actually play Metro Exodus is for the atmosphere, so we can actually come and look at this fire, and well, here we go. It looks exactly as on 1080 Ti. I was kind of hoping for RTX to kick in here, you know, make it a bit better, but hey ho, also no black smokestack. Well, burning black rubber ties. Yeah, I'm losing my language skills due to that DLSS. God damn it. Anyway, I would say this is quite similar to the performance of 1080 Ti, but you get all these, I would say, bangs and whistles actually. Or bells and whistles? What was the saying? I don't know, don't ask me. And to be fair, I'm almost certain this game could even run on high with ray tracing on low in 2K with no issues. That's my money on it. Unfortunately, I cannot do it because the only choice I have is either Full HD or 4K. And again, unfortunately, this is not a 4K card and we kind of need to live with it. Everything else kind of does look the same. But yeah, DLSS, that's the reason why you actually want an RTX card. Everything else comes secondary. At least in my book. And trust me, it's not a big book. Well, that's it. Let's move on to something more interesting. And our last contester is actually CyberPunk. Now, this is a game that just keeps on giving. We are running the latest patch 1.52. No idea what is the performance. I actually never got around playing this really, just for benchmarking. So we're just gonna still go with Full HD, and we're gonna go with ultra settings everywhere. As you can see, everything is enabled as much as we actually can, apart from DLSS. Now this is exactly where I kind of want to see how this game is gonna actually play out. Even with 3060 and DLSS on Full HD, this game was able to deliver above 70 frames. So to be fair, in all honesty, if this happens now as well, might be the thing. So what we have here, 1080 Ti and ow. That's basically how I feel. And we are able to just cruise around the city. Unexpected, but you know, I'll take it. So what we have here in this fast moving vehicle is 60-ish frames, no RTX, no DLSS. You can just hitch a ride because that's what you do in next city. As you can see, the GPU is already actually maxed out. It's 99% usage. And we are kind of on 60 frames. So this is what you get, and this is probably why people should be considering any kind of DLSS supporting card. Doesn't matter if it's 20 series or 30 series, or some people call them 2000 series and 3000 series. You know, call them as you want, honestly, with whatever floats your boat. End of the day, it's more about the performance and whatnot. So let's see if our free Uber is getting us somewhere. So as you can see, we are actually below 60 at this point. So it's not exactly surprising. I was kind of expecting this. It's a little bit sad to see this game in comparison to all other games, specifically Metro Exodus, not actually having, you know, high above 60 frames. But at the same time, can you really blame it? Look at the world. Like, this is huge. All this, that's like physical texture, I think. At least judging from the gameplay, that you can crash your car into the building rather than flying through it. That means there is a collision, so it does take up some of the game space. And the world itself does look pretty nice. It looks like it's always nighttime when I load up this game. So yeah, at this point I don't think we actually need to waste any more time for this particular game. So let's just quickly flee the scene, because, you know, our getaway driver got the hint that shit is going down, so he's trying his best to get us away from the trouble by delivering us right back to the police. Anyway, I think that kind of proves the point of what and how it comes into terms for 1080 Ti, and goddamn, this AI is going nuts. It's quite interesting. No disregard about his own vehicle. Maybe we can quickly help him with that. How about that? How about them apples? Yep, and straight off the bat, 58 frames. Barely holding 60. The car interior looks pretty good, obviously. It's kind of expected on ultra settings. If you saw my previous benchmark for 1080 Ti and CyberPunk, you will actually see exactly the same, which was a longer video, low, medium, and that was my bike I actually got from, in all honesty, 6 months back. Oh well, I guess we can just get out and take the bike. Anyway, I think I'm actually just starting to have fun with this game rather than benchmarking it. So I think it's time to stop. You know, one of those time to stop moments. And I'm pretty sure the DLSS will save the day, even in full HD, ultra settings with no issues, way above. To be honest, at this point, 45 frames. Let's check it out. So, CyberPunk 2070 Super. I actually took the liberty and adjusted the settings straight away, and here's the thing. The moment you enable DLSS, the preset goes to custom because you change the ultra settings. So as you can see, everything is cranked out apart from ray tracing, so we are enabling everything here. Ray trace lighting is going to be on ultra, DLSS is going to be on auto, for the simple reason, let it sort itself out. I've noticed that they actually added the benchmark stuff, which, well, you know, I'm not even gonna run, to be fair. It's synthetic benchmark probably, and real life is still real life, can't beat that. So let's continue where we ended up, and this is still gonna be a full HD version. So with a 1080 Ti, we were kind of 55-ish to 60 at times. So let's see what we can get here. So considering RTX is enabled and, you know, a lot of it, I'm kind of expecting very interesting results. Okay, so the interesting results are indeed very interesting. We are actually sub 60 straight from the get-go. The game does seem more responsive despite the numbers on the screen, which is very weird. But I cannot say things that are not how they are. Truly interesting. I did not expect this result. Right, I do believe it's due to the RTX because as you can see there is reflections and a lot of them considering all these NPCs, and we have Johnny Silverhand. I know, all joke, nobody cares about it, but due to all these reflections of the ray tracing being enabled, I do believe this is the main reason why we are getting sub 60. Does it hinder your gameplay? Honestly, if I didn't have metrics running, I wouldn't actually say that this is sub 60. Honestly, it just doesn't feel like it. It feels very smooth. It feels very nice. It feels exactly as it should be. But since we are nitpicking frames and, you know, GPUs, then obviously we're gonna be nitpicking frames and GPUs. And someone is hacking me, I guess. Or whatever this does, because again, I never really got around playing this game for the simple reason, even with 1080 Ti, without DLSS, you can really feel the game performance just slowing down. Even if the frame counter is above 60, it's not as fluid as this. Surprisingly, this feels much better at 45 than it does at 60 with 1080 Ti. On the bright side, I never managed to do this with a 1080, so hey, that's a good thing. Let's quickly, luckily for us, there's an option to disable some of the things, like reflections, and all of this, ray trace lightning. Let's put it on medium, DLSS on balanced. See what happens. And surprisingly, magic does happen. Same responsiveness, the game does look a little less blingy, to be fair. Oh, that's some pretty cool car doors. Imagine if that actually breaks down. And yeah, once again, the DLSS saves the day. I can almost see how certain textures, like that palm tree, like this first palm, it's not sharp like this one. So there is some near field tessellation or some sort of image re-rendering taking place. Because this is very sharp, like you can literally make out all the things. That palm right there, it's blurred out. Now, we've seen this on previous benchmarks as well, specifically in the desert, which I believe is more for the resource handling of the GPU, so the GPU doesn't render the whole street and all the block. But overall, I would say this is quite playable. Like specifically, if you want to play this, and I've said it once and I will say it probably every time, if you want to play CyberPunk, you need the DLSS. There's no way around it. Even with the 2060, I believe, you could easily get away with 60 frames by adjusting some of the settings and still having some of this bling. I can actually see raindrops. I've never seen raindrops before in CyberPunk. Is that a new feature with the new update? Interesting, indeed. Well, still counts, I guess. Anyway, that's all there is for CyberPunk. And honestly, let's go and take a look at everyone's favorite. Still, Modern Warfare. Let's take a look. And here we are on the 4 and latest title, which is, well, Modern Warfare actually, or kind of like the offspring of Warzone, one of those. So let me just walk you through what we actually have here. So obviously we're going to be going with a full HD. Dynamic resolution is off, which, you know, it's not exactly DLSS, it's more like on the spot changing the resolution of the textures to keep a certain frame rate, which is kind of like a poor man's version of DLSS. Apart from that, everything else is well, enabled and disabled, like the vertical sync, for instance. If we go for quality, we are rocking everything as much as we can apart from motion blur. So on-demand texture streaming, I don't really see the point of this, to be completely honest. Textures should be preloaded because the game is pretty heavy, like in terms of size, and you know, what else there is, just download the whole thing already. Everything else is as much as we can, and the only thing lacking is DirectX ray tracing. Now the DLSS is actually available, at least in Warzone. Not sure about this title, so we're just gonna take a look. So currently with 1080 Ti we're getting above 60, way above 60 actually. And we're using 8.6 gigs of video memory. Now, my biggest issue with this game back in the day was that, you know, there was like little tiny micro stutters and I wasn't really sure why. So we're just gonna go a little bit further and see how it all looks like.
Stand by for target confirmation.
Copy 3-1. Viking standing by.
Let's recce the area and make sure there's no Russian army down there.
So the stutters usually happen going downhill after the attack, and you know, it's just one of those things basically. Again, we need to just call out some of the targets here, which I believe is the tower and whatnot. So mercenaries, we're gonna get another vehicle, and that's pretty much all there is. And yeah, it actually looks pretty decent when you look at it, but hey.
No Russian military presence. Call it in, CIA. Blue Viking 5.
Let's enjoy the fireworks and see if that has any impact on our frame rate, which currently is kind of above 120, so 125 I would chalk it up. Yeah, the frame rate didn't really change too much. So let's just go and say hello to all those guys down there, see if there's any changes at all. I'm not sure there's gonna be any changes, but hey ho. We have about 2 minutes to descend the mountain. So let's just go there. Obviously, maybe these micro stutters is, you know, kinda... in the game engine itself, or maybe it's because it's an older card, I'm not entirely sure. So one thing that I noticed straight off, even on very high settings, you can see when you look at this tree, you see this? You kind of see through the tree a little bit, kind of like it's not exactly a tree. I hope guys you can see what I mean by that, and that kind of puts me off a little bit. It's kind of like the inside of the tree is burned out, but then it kind of lights up, so I don't know, like a interesting trick they've used. So far no stutters whatsoever, which is weird, but hey. And the frame rate is pretty decent.
Put them out of their misery. Take it. Element of surprise is not on our side, boys. Stay frosty.
Well, to be fair, this kind of runs way better than I expected. I was kind of hoping to have some of the stutters here and there, but hey, let's let this guy be shredded and we'll move from there.
Force out. We need to secure the gas before they move it. Move it! We need to nullify the runners, they're breaking for the warehouse. Movement. Cover me. Got it. Enemy to the west. Still visible.
So yeah, the frame rate is way above 60 anyway. So I don't know. Not sure something's actually gonna change with 2070.
Gas must be inside.
But I think we should just at least try, right? Let's take a look. And here we are in Modern Warfare. Obviously, exactly the same settings as with 1080 Ti, so let's just double check nothing has changed. So quality is still, well, basically on high. The difference is once you actually enable DLSS, the streaming quality locks up. Everything else is kind of the same, give or take. The anti-aliasing locks up, obviously because, well, DLSS is taking care of it. The DLSS is going to be set on balanced. Everything else when it comes to display is exactly as it was the last time, including, well, the streaming quality, which is, again, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just doing this wrong. Anyway, so far we are already getting way more frames, to be fair. Well, I wouldn't say way more, but at least it's pretty happy numbers so far. We are pulling 7.2 gigs of video memory and, well, can't really say anything bad about it. The game does have its interesting way of looking a little bit sharper than usual, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Also, for those who play Warzone, Warzone does support DLSS. So if you have these things, then, well, you're kind of good to go.
We're clear. Copy.
Let's take a look. Obviously, we do have RTX enabled as well. However, I'm not exactly seeing where we can see the RTX stuff. Is it here?
Let's recce the area and make sure there's no Russian army in there. Check the railway.
Let's kickstart all this stuff.
Transport for the gas.
Look at the guys. Look away.
Vehicles on the move.
Enjoy the scenery. Wait for the second car to come.
Contractors.
Security. Good targets.
And now we can just wait to call in the airstrike. So we are currently running at 158 frames. Let's see if that changes from the very big explosion.
The open south gate.
And I do believe there was a little tiny stutter right there.
Target acquired. Weapons free in 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Echo 3-1. Good effect.
Honestly, that explosion looked a bit weird. Like the explosion
We'll take it from here.
animation kind of glitched out a bit. Or maybe I'm just seeing things. I'm gonna see if this is on the recording or is just my TV not handling 150 frames. Might be both, but we'll see. The big test is the tree. Remember the tree? Yes, that is gonna be the big test here.
Clear. Force up.
So last time we walked up to the tree, we could kind of see inside of the tree. But maybe that's just the games. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Look at this, guys. Look at this. You can walk around. See, there's the bark, like right here. When you move around, you can see that the inside of the tree is kind of glowing. I'm not sure if anyone actually noticed this. Maybe I'm the first person in the world. Also, you can see that no matter which angle you're looking for, it kind of always faces whichever direction you are walking around it, like this little thing. Anyway, game's got a game. So we are actually about 100 frames at this point. Let's see what happens after the huge explosion. Pretty decent, even in full HD, I must say. This is quite impressive. Well, impressive is a hard word to use, but you're gonna get the point, I guess.
Element of surprise is not on our side, boys. Stay frosty.
To be fair, this game actually looks great. Also, no stutters. Riddle me that. Maybe they actually patched the game finally to the point you can actually play it. Who knows?
Stay sharp. We're blind on
Let's wait for these guys to get their daily dose of iron or lead. No idea what ammunition they're shooting.
Got an MG nest on that. Good surprise.
Wow.
Wake up and take him out.
Huge frame drop. Do you see that?
We need to secure
all the way down to 50. Ow. Yeah, well, in all honesty, I did not expect it to be like this, you know? Not good. Need to get up to the high ground. That's a 200 IQ play right there, by the way. If you've never done this in Warzone, well, you're missing out big time.
They're moving 20 meters out. Cover me. Reloading. Got an enemy southwest. Got a visual.
The game does look a little bit different, in all honesty.
Gas must be inside.
I would say there's actually a bit more reflections, surprisingly. Because the game does not look this flashy on 1080 Ti, and I can account for that. But hey, you know, smoke effects are definitely a little bit better. 100%, like all this is very nicely done. Surprised about the actual stuttering, but this issue was back in a day when I first got the game, honestly, and that's never really went away. It could be something with my own hardware, I do not know, but I've seen people actually complaining about this on forums as well, like the little micro stutters, but you know, that's not exactly the point here, is it?
3-1, move up. Marines in the warehouse.
Anyway, let's come to the conclusion, shall we? So, as you can see, MSI is singing pretty high praises about their 2070 Super. As you can see, there's obviously the Torx fans with double ball bearings, which is good for longevity. They are not shy about 8 GB of video memory, and obviously the RGB Mystic Light Dragon Center that actually allows you to control the RGB and whatnot. And the usual stuff we've seen, get superpowers by the new 2000 series. So, is this a bad card? Not really. Is it better than 1080 Ti? Not really. The only thing it is better would be the DLSS support, because honestly, end of the day, that's the only thing that actually gives this card any kind of credibility. The RTX support is great, but the card itself is simply not powerful enough to even handle the RTX to begin with. Obviously, RTX plus DLSS might again save the day, but you still need to probably adjust some of the settings, because in more graphically intensive games, and specifically above 1080p, I do believe this card is gonna struggle. So even looking at benchmark comparisons, and I know, I've heard this before, you hate this website for reasons unknown, apparently how they write about these cards, I do believe that this is very good for the users. So this is the user submitted benchmarks, one of the reasons I use this site. As you can see, even currently in 2021, despite the launch dates or the release dates of these cards, the 1080 Ti is in a higher percentage than the actual 2070 Super. Now obviously there is some things that the new gen does better, like much faster multi-rendering, which is, well, to be fair, pretty good thing to begin with, because it makes your image basically show up faster, to be honest. All the textures, the models, all of the shaders, they basically, you know, renders faster. So it all loads up faster in your screen. Maybe you're not even gonna notice it, but probably it will. In terms of games, I've never looked at this, but again, raw power of 1080 Ti is still pretty much unmatched. Like, better reflection handling, lighting effects, body calculation. Now, this is basically, again, due to the CUDA cores. Lightning effects and stuff like this. Now, in all fairness, I'm not sure if 2070 Super would be the correct comparison for 1080 Ti, because it's not a Ti card. At the same time, we've seen the performance of 2080 Ti. So my conclusion would be, if you can get 2070 Super for a decent price and you are sitting on anything below 1080 Ti, probably it would be worth upgrading. If you are playing games on 2K and you see that your current GPU is lacking, if that game has DLSS support, you probably want to consider an RTX card as your get out of jail free card. But other than that, if you play just your regular games and you don't really care about graphical fidelity, then unless your card is unable to run games on very low settings and you actually care about that, then probably, you know, not exactly too much to think about here. It is a great card. It does offer pretty decent features. DLSS is, well, the old new thing, so to say, and it does work. But the performance of the card is just shy enough for you to keep wanting to get 2080 Ti. Because end of the day, I'm not sure about the price difference currently in 2022 between 2070 Super and 2080 Ti, but I would say if you can, shoot for the stars. 2080 Ti will be much better choice in the long term. Also, it is an actual 4K card and it will definitely run 2K ultra settings for most of the games. Probably there will be some of the games that are a bit more demanding, but let's be completely honest. How many times you're gonna replay Shadow of the Tomb Raider? Okay? So you just need to level with yourself, pick your games. I've literally, before I started this comparison, I went on Google and I typed in games that support DLSS list, and honestly, I didn't even have half of those games, right? So obviously the DLSS support will come in later titles, and I do believe it's almost mandatory for any title that's coming out, unless it's a pixel art. Even then, I mean, Minecraft has ray tracing now, so I rest my case. But in general, I don't know. I would say that both of these cards are great, and it's very hard to pick a clear winner. I would award at least 10 points to the DLSS Gryffindor Tower, because it is a feature that helps in a lot of cases. But at the same time, I cannot deny that 1080 Ti is still a powerful card, and if paired with a decent CPU, which hopefully has, you know, hyper-threading, unlike mine, I do believe it's just gonna power through. And at the same time, you don't need RTX or DLSS if it just runs. So post your comments down below. What are your thoughts? Are you happy with a 2070, 2070 Super? Or maybe there's an AMD card that blows both of these out of the water. And let's not talk about 69 XTs, okay? Let's just leave those in a big boy league. Anyway, this is all I wanted to talk about, guys, and show you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. So, see you next time. Thanks for watching.